we taste, I'll wait obviously until kickoff. I'll just chat about the season that we have had, and that's a big conversation in itself. And then we can look at some hi Denise. We can look at a couple of 2019 Heresy wines. So we have just finished the harvest of the 2020 vintage, and no one's going to forget 2020. Go back to the beginning. Hi, Jonathan. Go back to the beginning of the season. So go back to early October last year, and everything was perfect. And then around mid-October, unfortunately, it started to unravel. So the weather went really cold, very windy, and it basically stayed that way right through until mid-December. We've never seen anything like it. But when you look at the whole of Australia, we are down here on the Mornington Peninsula. We are the lucky ones compared to so many regions. So our problem, our issue was flowering. So the cold weather was fine up until late November. We can deal with that. The vines are fine. They were doing okay. They weren't great, but they were doing okay. And then flowering, obviously critical to get crop. So to get a grape, you need the flower to be successfully fertilized and then proceed to grow into a grape. But the weather was so bad through the whole of the flowering period that the flowering was a disaster. So, of course, the crops were adversely affected, and very, very low crops were the result of that. And this is right through southern Victoria, right through South Australia, Tasmania. It's reminiscent of 2014. Maybe not quite as bad. 2014 was seriously a bad flowering, but the worst we've ever seen was 2002. So it wasn't the first time we've seen a season like this one for us, with the poor weather adversely affecting the flowering. But it's still hard to take, when you're looking at the crops and there's not much there. But we did not get smoke taint, so thank God for that. The regions, many regions, of course, were very badly affected by the bushfires, and a lot of those regions could not pick even one grape because of the smoke taint in the grapes. So the smoke taint is locked inside the grape with the sugar, so it's actually bound up inside the grape, and you can't see the taint. Sorry. You can't see the taint until after the ferment. So it's very cruel. So the grapes look beautiful. They taste fantastic. You cannot taste the smoke taint in the grape. You have to actually start a ferment. So the fermentation, of course, is utilizing the sugar. The yeast is turning the sugar into alcohol. And as that process is happening, the taint compound that has been bound to the sugar is released. So it's very, very cruel. But we were spared. A lot of the regions near us around Melbourne were spared. And so we have made wine in 2020, which we are very happy with. We wish we had a bit more. But of course, with COVID, it is probably fair to say that it was good it wasn't big. It would have been very hard to manage the logistics around a big vintage with all the issues that have come with COVID. But the other thing about the season we've just had is that there are regions that have had great vintages. They will be probably not making a big song and dance about it, because the region that's probably had the best season, the best vintage, is the Murray-Darling. And the Murray-Darling, of course, is the big workhorse for the Australian wine industry. And they don't get promoted for great wine. They're incredible. The region, Murray-Darling region, is incredibly important for the Australian wine industry, but it just chugs along. And Murray-Darling has had a phenomenal season, a phenomenal vintage, which is great news for me, us, for Heresy. The Pinot Grigio that we source from Murray-Darling out of 2020 is extraordinarily good. I'm very happy with the 19, the 18, the Heresy Pinot Grigios have been consistently wonderful, but the 2020 is very special. It's very interesting. 2002, I talked about it before, which was basically a disaster down here on the Mornington Peninsula, was a great year, another great year in Murray-Darling. So it's a balance, I guess, between the cool and the warm regions. Makes sense. So that's this season. All the wines are happily finishing ferment. We are putting the 2020 Pinot Noirs into barrel and pulling out the single vineyard 2019 Pinot Noirs from barrel, so that we never have an empty barrel in the winery. It works out very well. So very, very happy with what we're seeing with these single vineyard Pinot Noirs from 19. So let me talk about 19. Where are we? 4:58, nearly ready for the 5 o'clock kickoff. I'll talk about 19 in a couple of minutes. So to taste, we've got a couple of 19s, as I said. We've got the Grigio and the Pinot Noir. I'm going to be starting with the 2019 Pinot Grigio after I've spoken about the season. One thing about the season we've just had that has been truly fantastic is the amount of rain we've had. So it's been a season for growing, not so much for vegetative growth, not so much for fruit, but for making the vines healthy and strong. So we've come through a very dry period, a number of seasons which have been very, very dry. And the rain we've had has been for this season has been fantastic, and it's absolutely pouring at the moment. So it's replenishing the water in the soil, the root systems of the vines are taking up nutrients, storing those nutrients away for next season, for bud burst next season in September, October. And the vines should be, we hope, in the best place they've been for a very, very long time. So previous season, so vintage 2019 was, I'm going to talk about it now. Welcome everyone. So the 2019 season and vintage was brilliant for the wine. So wonderful grapes for making wine from. But the vines at the end of that season, end of the 2019 season, went dormant under enormous stress. So the dry conditions were brilliant for the grapes, giving us extraordinary fruit, but the rain didn't come until after the vines went dormant. So they went dormant in actually a fairly stressed, unhappy state. And this we saw at the beginning of this season as they came out, bud burst, came back. There were all sorts of issues. So we're confident that this rain that we have had, and it's been so much rain this season, has been a real bonus, really good, really essential actually for the vines. So everything in a way balances out. Nature's like that. You just have to be, what is the word? Pliant almost. You have to be able to go with the season. It may not always deliver what you want in terms of the crop, but the vines need a break, and they've had it, and they've been replenished. So this is fantastic. We shall see what next season brings next spring. It's all nerve-wracking, but farming is like that. You obviously don't know what really is coming, and you just have to go with it. And we shall see. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the 2019 vintage. It was, we had an amazing run of vintages, really. As I said before, 14 was very small, like 2020, but in between 14 and 20, we have had fairly much a dream run with quality and quantity. Finishing really with that dream run, finishing with 2019 vintage. The season finished, the harvest started with extraordinary heat. It was scary how hot it was. But this is the Mornington Peninsula, so the vines are fine. It's not that hot, and what it gave us was like this wonderful finish to the harvest, to the season, which we then went into harvest with this position with, particularly with Pinot Noir, where the grapes were extraordinary. We've never seen anything quite like it. So flavour was fully ripe. We always go on and on and on about flavour ripeness because this is a cool climate. So we struggle. We live on the edge a bit with ripening in the flavour. We always get the sugar. Sugar always will go up, but you've got to have ripe flavour, of course. But it is sometimes elusive. In 19, it was completely there. The other thing we had, which was quite extraordinary, was, as well as good sugar, of course, as you're ripening, your sugar's going up. But generally, your acid, as your sugar's going up, your acid is going down. So when you pick your fully ripe fruit to make the wine, often the acid can be a little bit low. You've lost acid as part of the payoff to get there. But in 19, the acids were extraordinary. So we're not really sure why, because it was so hot. Generally, that will lead to lower acids. But I think the vines tended to shut down. It was so hot. And so they held the acid. And it means that the balance in the wines out of 2019 is extraordinary. It's perfect. So everything in the wine, the makeup of the wine, is supremely beautifully balanced. You don't see that every year. And it means that the wines look wonderful when they're young, but they will cellar for a long time. The cellaring of Pinot Noir, you could argue, is it that important? But I think it's a benchmark. If you have great Pinot Noirs that cellar for 10 years plus, you know you've got something special. And it's a bit like we always refer to Burgundy as our benchmark, of course, for Pinot Noir. And the great Burgundies cellar extraordinarily well. They just get better and better. 10 years or more, those wines are just magnificent. And this is where we hope we are heading. But all the wines we made out of 2019 were beautiful wines. So the Pinot Grigio, the Pinot Gris, the Chardonnay, the Friulano, the Fiano, Sangiovese. It was just a dream for winemakers. 2019 was a dream vintage. Okay, so I think we should look at the 2019 Pinot Grigio. I've been loving the feedback that we've been getting for this wine, particularly through the COVID times. There's been a lot more activity on the site, which has been really great to sit down and see that feedback. And this wine, I just love reading the comments about this wine. So, as people know, I think, we've been working with this variety for 30 years. So we came down to the peninsula in 1988, and we were determined to plant PG. There was basically none here. There was none anywhere really in Australia, and it was a great adventure. We had to push through. We had to put up with the name heresy came from us being the heretics and us pushing this new variety back then that no one really knew anything about. And we were treated really by a lot of people like heretics. There was support, of course there was support, but there was also this almost disdain. Why would you do it? So we've learned over those 30 years working with Pinot Grigio, Pinot Gris, same variety. But working with this variety, we have learned so much. And we've been very lucky. We've learned a lot from the Europeans, from the French and the Italians, because really there was no one in Australia we could bounce off, we could learn from. So we went to Europe and learnt from great winemakers. We were very fortunate. So it's going to sound crazy, but what we've learned is the less you do, the better the end product. So what you're seeing now with these Heresy Pinot Grigios is seriously simple, minimalist winemaking. And it is such a pleasure to make these wines the way we learnt from the Europeans and to see it work, so well. And of course, it just reinforces the truth. The truth is it's all about the vineyard. It's all about the grapes. The care, the attention put into the vineyard will show in the glass. So I think the fundamental thing about Pinot Grigio is texture. It's why it's so appealing. So it's naturally low acid, like its sibling Pinot Noir. They're both low acid varieties, the exact opposite to Riesling or even Chardonnay. So you have this softness, this beautiful, almost succulence in the wine. Even at, this is what, 12.5% alcohol. It's not a big wine like the Mornington Pinot G that we make under Heresy. That's a big wine. That's more like 14%. That's a powerful wine with great weight and presence. The Pinot Grigio 12.5, it's beautiful, soft, not overpowering, screaming out for food, must go with food. I keep saying in my replies, what food did you have with the wine? It's so important to match the Grigio with food. Incredibly versatile. You can really, you can't go wrong. Whether it's seafood, calamari, did flathead last night, flathead fillets, just pan fried in butter. You can have it with all sorts of antipasti, pizza, good pizza. It really, don't match it with powerful food, rich sauces. But I'd be very happy to have it with a pasta, with chicken. Its versatility is extraordinary. Yeah, so don't be put off. Try it with a huge range of foods. It should work. It should work as long as they're not too rich and powerful. Then they need a rich and powerful wine, food like that. So the nose, it doesn't leap out, but it's there. The wine has presence. Beautiful fruit, intoxicating. It's floral. It's often Grigio is often described as honey and hay. Think of summer smells. It's pretty nice combination. Wild honey and the hay with the sunshine on it. Great smell. And then there's always a little bit of background, like you're in a bakery, brioche. The French always talk about brioche with the PG. So it's a very, very beautiful nose. And then on the palate, softness, texture, succulence, just no attack, no acid attack, like you get from a Riesling or something like that. And it's just crying out food. I haven't got any food here, unfortunately. Crying out for food. I think a bit of food, another sip of the wine. And another thing that you look for, I look for in the wine, is length. So after you've swallowed the wine, it should have presence. It should be like a palate memory that lingers. And we often call it persistence. And this has got it. It's not just the flavor, it's the texture. It's the very special thing about PG is this wonderful textural quality in the wine. And don't forget, it is related very closely to Pinot Noir. So the seductive qualities that people see in Pinot Noir are also in Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris, which of course makes them so appealing. I wish there was a bit of feedback. Okay. Pinot Noir. So under Heresy, we have the Mornington Peninsula Pinot Noir 2019. The 2018, I think, is still available. I'm seeing comments about the 2018 a lot. So I'm thinking there must be still 2018 to buy, but the 2019 certainly is available. So at the moment, I think both. But the 19, 18, 19, both wonderful vintages. The 19 for me is the one. It's just got that extra quality. As I was trying to explain before, the end of that season, last season, was amazing, and it delivered, I think, as close to perfect Pinot Noir as we're ever going to see down here. And we were able to bottle for under Heresy a really beautiful wine. And I think it will, if anyone's interested, maybe not, I think it will sell, as I said before, very, very well. 10 years easily. And the wine will change. It will change dramatically from being this beautiful fruit-driven wine into something else. Gets the secondary characters, which are very attractive, very, very, very good with food. But anyway, let's look at it as it is in the glass now. It's a great color. Pinot Noir down here can have very light color. It doesn't mean it's a poor wine, but we like to see color in Pinot Noir. It's a trick. You get, obviously, your eyes tell you so much. So the first thing you do is you look at the color of the wine. And with Pinot Noir, the French always say, try to ignore the color, because it doesn't tell you. With Pinot Noir, it's not telling you a lot. It can be very light and still wonderful. But in 19, as I said, we got everything. So the color is fantastic. It's brilliant. It's deep. And it's in great condition. So as I was saying before, the acid balance in the 19s is amazing. And the acid, the natural acid, when it's in balance, when it's where you want it, affects the color. So when you look at a wine with great, brilliant, limpid, vivid color, you know the acid's good. The nose, Pinot Noir, so much is on the nose. There's just so much happening on this wine. It's alive. It's singing in the glass. It wants a big glass so you can just smell it. and enjoy the aroma. That's the thing about Pinot Noir. You really want to just linger smelling the wine. It's entrancing. Now the palate. Fantastic texture. Long, rich, succulent. The Pinot Noir, of course, is a wine that can take quite powerful food. I mean, the classic is duck and Pinot. That wine is screaming out for some beautiful meat. It doesn't have to be duck, of course. It can be. I love the bone leg of lamb on the barbecue. I reckon that's one of the great combinations with Pinot Noir. Or just a good bit of steak. That wine, I think really delivers what Pinot Noir should deliver. So that is it for the tasting. I'm not seeing any feedback, which is a bit of a concern. I hope someone's out there listening to me waffle on. As I said before, out of 19, we made a good range of wines. I'm so proud of those wines, whether it's the Fiano, the Friulano, the Sangiovese. The 19s are amazing. So I've promised to post talking about Friulano, an article that came out last week by Max Allen about a tasting and lunch we did. Hang on, here's Bianca. Hello. I'm not seeing them. Damn. Damn. No, I can't see them. There were early ones coming through. There's 4 there, and there's a timing down 35 minutes. Talking about 35 minutes, my God. And then below that it just says end live video. No, nothing. Only those 4. Unless it says. Yep. Why? Let me do this. No, I'm not getting it. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. For some reason, I think it's just my ignorance. I'm not able to see any feedback, which is a real shame. I really apologize. But I was just talking about the article by Max Allen in the Fin Review. Extraordinary moment in time that was all pre-COVID and quite surreal now to think about and remember. But we looked at primarily the wines we make here that are skin contact white wines. And the main variety we use to make those wines is Friulano. So it's all about the journey that started with Pinot Grigio, which took us to northeast Italy, which then exposed us to the great winemakers in northeast Italy and across the border in Slovenia, which then took us into a whole range of wines that we knew nothing about, that I'd never seen in Australia. And we've been playing with the skin contact white wines since 2007 here at the winery. And it was a great moment in time to be there at Grossi Florentino with an amazing bunch of people who were just all so wonderful in their feedback. And I think it's maybe just a maturing, as I said, we've been working with the PG for 30 years. We've been working with the skin contact since 2007. And I think we're getting there. You never stop learning, but we're getting there. And I want to talk to Paul about the possibility, maybe, of doing a skin contact white wine in 2021. So for next season. So it's down the track. It's a project that we'll talk about. We'll talk about, Paul. I look forward to that. What else? So out of 2020, as I said, the Pinot Grigio is, I'm just so happy with it. It is from a season, a vintage that is phenomenal up there, Murray Darling, as I said before. It's very, very special. And we do have, this is not fair, Paul, but we do have a Sangiovese we made from the same grower. So up there, been working with a great friend, Dennis Pursuit, for a long time, sourcing the Pinot Grigio from Dennis. He also grows Sangiovese. And as I said, 2020 up there was amazing. And we have here a goodly amount of beautiful Sangiovese, which I'll talk to Paul about as well. We'll see whether there's a place for it. All in good time. All in good time. So it's such a shame that I can't see these comments. So one more time. Try one more time. I just can't. No. I can't see them. I'm so sorry. I apologize profusely for the one-way nature of this. So we've talked. I think I've talked myself out. 40 minutes, probably enough for everyone. Just want to say it's been such a great pleasure working with everyone for a while now. Kicked off in 2013, and just an amazing opportunity to work with a great bunch of people. And please keep the feedback coming. It is so important, and it's such a pleasure most of the time to read it and respond. It is really one of the things I look forward to now. And it's interesting, isn't it, in these times, how we are connecting more with people. And this is an important way of doing it. So I'm really enjoying that. But I think I will say goodbye and thank you. And I look forward to doing one of these again soon where I can actually get the feedback. Thank you.